What's up, guys? This is Carter Thomas with Coin Mastery TV. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to get alerted for daily crypto updates on our way to 70,000 subscribers. Epic times, going parabolic, just like our good friend Bitcoin here. Today we're talking a little bit about Bitcoin's price, a little bit about Ethereum and Litecoin as usual, touching a little bit on altcoins, but I really want to spend maybe half of this video today on the psychology, because I think that that's really the game that's going to be played over the next 2 weeks. So I want to kick that off today with a few things that I think a lot of you may find interesting. That's kind of content you're probably not going to find other places. And more importantly, it's going to help you make better decisions, make more profits, crush and capitalize on this incredible financial revolution. For anybody who signed up for the San Francisco meetup on Thursday, thank you so much. We actually had 200 people sign up so far. So you will get an email from me today on Tuesday at some point. And what we're going to have to do is free tickets and then a couple of paid tickets, all of which is going to go to charity. But that's going to allow me, because I can only fit 75 people in the office. It's like fire code. So we will do more of these if you don't get in, but stay tuned for your email with instructions and we'll go from there. So I'm excited about that. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. So you can see on Bitcoin right now, if you're listening on the podcast, I drew a support resistance line, which I find really, really helpful. And you can see why. This is not perfectly exact, but it paints the picture where right around 17,900, there was 3 different levels of resistance, right? On the 8th, on the 13th, and then right around the 16th, give or take, where the price of Bitcoin couldn't break through 18,000. If you remember that, I mean, if you're watching GDAX like all of us cool kids do, instead of watching Netflix, we watch GDAX now. There was huge sell walls at this, and it took a few different times to try to break through. Now that it has, it's bouncing off of this exact same line. This is what happens in most charts. It's not always, but this is a very fundamental technical analysis rule where previous resistance becomes support. Now, this may seem very beginner, and in many ways it is very beginner, but I like to think of it more as just simple as opposed to beginner. And often the simple explanations in charts is where you can make the real moves. The less factors that go into making a decision, the more likely you are to make a decision. That's why I like to keep it simple like this. So this is what I'm looking at. Now the kicker is, remember, you always got to look at price as the first thing, and then you got to look at volume as the second thing. The price is showing some support here, but we're not getting the volume. And without the volume, I'm not convinced that this support is going to hold. Meaning, it may bounce off this once because there's already inherent market support there, but it could easily come back down and it'll retest it. And until I see support that meets or exceeds the resistance volume, not totally convinced it's a buy-worthy dip, or I want to see us get retested at least one more time before the upward trend starts. So that's what's going on in Bitcoin. Now, this is just a technical analysis. This doesn't take into account a lot of the macro forces that are happening right now. One of which I think the time of year is big, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I think what's going on in Korea is a big deal with regulations and a lot of rumors that are coming out, and the overall market sentiment is just. It's just uncertain. We're in a massive parabolic. There's an incredible amount of FUD going around, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And for those reasons, I'm looking for very, very good reasons to be spending money at this point, which is kind of counterintuitive to what is going on in the altcoin market. Okay? Now, so on the other side of the spectrum, we're looking at Ethereum, or the Ether, I should say. On the USD chart, which has had a very, very strong run in the last couple of days, 48 hours or so. But you'll notice, at least on the USD chart, there's this gap that continues to it doesn't seem to get filled in. And if you look over at Litecoin, the same thing has happened. Now, luckily, This gap, which was the bigger problem, because that was way more vertical, that got filled in pretty nicely. I'm less concerned about this one, at least on the 1 hour. You go over to Ethereum, and you can see that there's this little bit of gap here where it could go either way. It's not totally vertical, but it's a little unstable. So I've got my eyes on Ethereum. If we go to, let's just look at the Ethereum BTC on Bittrex, for example. Let this thing load up. The 1 hour. This chart looks a little bit better, right? Because it's coming off. It's got some strong volume. The thing about Ethereum that's going on right now is that the transaction backlog is still ridiculous. So, but that doesn't seem to bother anyone these days. So I'm not really paying too much attention to that. I'm sitting back and watching Ethereum. I already own a bunch of Ethereum, so I don't really want to buy anymore. I'm not totally convinced on Ethereum as a platform yet. I personally like Stellar as an ICO/DApp platform, but you got to diversify. And Litecoin having the same sort of ongoing demand curve, or it's coming back from a price standpoint. I think that this is the same old story. I think that as Bitcoin has gone horizontal, Ethereum and Litecoin became much more attractive to the Coinbase users. And then people who have already been in Coinbase, who maybe they took the Coin Mastery free course and found out that you can buy altcoins, they came over to Bittrex and to Binance and to Binance and started buying these up, which has caused, or led to, I should say, just astronomical gains. Now, let's get into the psychology a little bit, because we could go through each and every one of these and peel back the onion on them, which we will start to do, like I said yesterday, over the next few weeks. But for now, still kind of keeping it in the macro, I think at least until 2018, but here and there. What I really care about is that we just had arguably 2, maybe 3 of the best days of altcoin gains since June. And if you have not been in the crypto space since early summer, it was kind of like this, but it was like this for about 3 weeks straight. I mean, everything was just going. You'd press refresh and you were making money, and then there's kind of this slow downfall of all these altcoins, where people started saying like, "Hey, well, there's not really much going on here, so what's the deal?" And Bitcoin just slowly started to just take over, as can be seen in the market dominance. Now we are having a second resurgence of altcoins. And instead of trying to predict whether or not that's going to continue, I don't know. I don't think anybody really knows. What I do know is that the people buying altcoins, which are people like myself, like you, or people in this world where we are trying to profit from crypto, you're just coming off of a 2-day huge binge of dopamine. It does not get bigger than this. When you can double your money in a matter of hours on a liquid market, and at some point that is it's not going to stop necessarily. It's just going to slow down, and that's all that needs to happen for the dopamine to take over the brain to want to buy something. So as you watch this, what you really want to keep your eyes open for is what's slowing down and what is where do the conversations go online? What are people keeping their eye on? Is it Ethereum, Litecoin, Bitcoin? Does the money flow back into Bitcoin? As saying like, okay, well, now that things are really dying down in the altcoins, maybe I'll go back to Bitcoin, take my profits, and play it a little bit safer. Or do people just say, man, I really want to get one more big, huge rip, and they start to look around? And that's, you go on Twitter, you just start to look through the comments, you look through how people are talking about it, you search around, and you see what you can find out. But every time that you see these huge dopamine runs, as soon as it starts to slow down, you see money start to shift in big ways. And I can't predict where it's going to shift to. Usually it goes back into Bitcoin. It may go into Ethereum and Litecoin. They may become the new safe bets. Safe is a very relative word in that sense. But the market is all about dopamine. It's all speculative right now. I mean, I believe in crypto, and we'll get to, I get it, right? I believe in the whole thing, But this is a purely speculative environment, and you got to play it as such. And if you don't know what game you're playing, you're getting played. And so that's the thing to really watch and to keep in mind. And same thing on Binance. As you watch these things happen, you're going to see rumor, you're going to see news, and it's okay to go after some of these opportunities. You just got to make sure you have a plan, an entry plan and an exit plan before you press any buttons, before you transfer any money in. Know what kind of game you're getting yourself into and know how you're going to get out if you want to get out, or, just don't buy something and just hope it goes up because the market's going up. That's when you start to get smoked. Okay? It's all about the dopamine. It's all about the people. I thought this was really cool. This is a little bit less about, this is a coin that I've been watching for a while. Now, let me be first. I own some Maker, MKR. So this is a little bit self-serving. However, I think that this is a really interesting project because it's something that I kind of believe in, but I also know that the people that really believe in it are really, really smart people. So, I conceptually understand what's going on here. I'll explain in a second. But I know that I am biased more towards the hedge fund model, more towards the Bitcoin, Monero, kind of the fundamental scarcity, proof of work. That tends to be more of my style of investing in coins I like. But I also know that this and the Ethereum and the dApps and the technology side, there's a lot of people that are really smart that may be paving the future that I don't want to miss it because of my own personal biases. So that's one of the biggest reasons why I'm interested in this. If you don't know what MakerCoin is, they just released it. And I'm bringing this up not because I don't own enough that this is like a huge deal, but I'm bringing this up because what they're trying to do is super interesting. The MakerCoin is trying to replace Tether with a stable coin. And they're doing it, Tether, right, is allegedly backed by $1, and that's very suspect at this point, but that's the pitch. What MakerCoin does is it has a coin called DAI, D-A-I coin, and the DAI is pegged to the global currency index. Let's say it's $1. And every time it has volatility, it pulls a block from the Maker currency pool to restabilize itself. It's a lot more complicated than that, but it's a self-regulating ecosystem that it's not pegged to anything. It's just pegged on its own digital assets. It gets really complicated really fast, but this is the kind of thing that if it does work, it would be huge. And that the bigger point I'm trying to make here, and the reason why you should care about projects, maybe not like Maker because it's kind of expensive at this point, but there are people, especially out here in Silicon, I walk down the street in San Francisco, who are really who are way ahead of the curve, complete futurists. And this may not turn into anything for 5 years. But just because I don't get it, or just because I don't necessarily believe in it or like it, doesn't mean I shouldn't have some exposure to it because it could go big. Who am I to think that I'm going to be right all the time, or I know what the future is going to be? That's ridiculous. So I look at this and it's so outlandish. It's so different than the OG maximalist Bitcoin world. It gives my portfolio a much wider range of things that could go right. So I'll link this post up. You should go check it out. I honestly, from a purchasing standpoint, I do not think that this is going to be the most profitable thing you buy at all. I think that there's plenty of other coins that out there that may make you more money, right? You go in the altcoins and follow the trends, watch the dopamine. But I do think that over a 5-year window, this is a really interesting play from a portfolio standpoint. And I'm always trying to do that. I'm always trying to outsource my own biases, my own emotions. And if this works, could be interesting. So a lot of smart people are invested. A lot of smart people believe in this, and a lot of smart people have been working on this. that's why I think it's interesting. So, do your own research, check it out. And let's check out a few more things. I thought this was a really great quote, just real quick. Ritz-Holt Wealth, I don't know who they are. I'm not affiliated with them at all. But Peter Bernstein said, "It's funny that people are motivated by anxiety to take a risk. You would think that anxiety would make them more risk averse." And it's crazy how this happens, where you see this in everything in life. I mean, this is not just about crypto, but I mean, you saw this with housing. You saw this with, anytime there's any sort of money-making opportunity, where people look at opportunities as a way out of a current situation. Meaning they have anxiety about their current situation. They see a potential thing that could take them out of there, and they're willing to add more anxiety, more risk to that profile in order to relieve their current anxiety. This is why, last week we talked about how if you have a more balanced life inside and outside of crypto, you're going to make better decisions. Similar situation like this, where people will, everyone, I'm not immune to this by any means. If you feel stressed, if you feel anxiety, often you are willing to take more risk to try to get rid of that anxiety, whether it be your job, whether it be your home, whether it be any sort, your health, your situation that you're in, whatever. And that's a tough place to be when it comes to markets. So something to think about if you are in a situation where you are feeling a lot of anxiety or stress about how much money you have or the job you have or whatever. Realize that your natural inclination is to risk more, because all you think about is, well, if it does work, this will go away. Your brain can't process what happens if it doesn't work. So I thought that was just a very poignant and timely thing. As this dopamine starts to, come back down, this is when the anxiety and the risk starts to play a fact. You just got to be conscious of it. That's all it is. You just got to be aware of what's going on in your own head, so that you can stop, go for a walk, then come back and make a really informed decision. Other piece that I thought was really interesting, Tushar Jain, I've mentioned him before. This is something that I've been thinking about a lot myself. He tweeted about, "I wonder how many people are waiting to take gains until January 1st to defer paying taxes until 2019. Probably a big underlying factor for this rally. No one wants to sell right now and incur taxes for 2017 tax year." As we stated yesterday, it looks like in the United States, at least, there's going to be a tax reform passed, which could have big implications for anybody in this space, right? If you have a company, or if you want to get registered as a trader or whatever. Taxes obviously are still a gray area, and the gains that people have achieved right now are big. So there is a lot of incentive for people, at least in the United States, maybe globally, to wait until January 1st to take profits, because then you defer your tax liability until April 2019, or even further if you get an extension of your taxes. Meaning, this is an unknown. Nobody knows what's going to happen with this, but there is a risk of waiting until January 1st. Maybe you defer your taxes, maybe you even get a better tax structure, whatever. But if everybody does the same thing, there's going to be a big price drop anyway. Again, I don't know if I'm not sure that's what's going to happen, but it is something to think about. And the way I think about this is the same way you dollar cost average in, you often want to dollar cost average out. So if you're looking at this and saying that, well, I want to wait until January 1st, maybe you do 10% in 2017, and then you do 10% in January, but you do 30% in January, but stagger it out, because just like anything in crypto, anything in finance, you never want to go all in on one particular, you don't want one thing to determine your whole future. This is just a risk factor to take into account. So, I take profits often. I don't take a lot because I believe in crypto, and also because of the tax implications of a lot of my gains. But the more I think about how many people are waiting for January 1st, the more I start to think that it may be useful to at least take 10 more percent this year, eat the tax, and then at least I don't know. It's just the way to spread your risk out. So last thing, and I'll let you guys, if you want to go on Twitter, you can check this out on twitter.com/Carter Thomas. This is something, if you've been watching this channel, you know this is really something I believe in pretty deeply. And I'll start with just by saying every day that goes by, I check Twitter and realize that Bitcoin is much more of a social revolution than a financial one. And I firmly believe this. I think that the Bitcoin and crypto has brought in a lot of people under the guise of you can make a ton of money. I think that the markets and whatever you call it, the tokenization or the marketization of everything, making all things a liquid market that can be bought into, manipulated, scalped, pumped, whatever. This is just what needed to happen for crypto to really get the legs that it got, or it continues to get. And I think that as we look back on all of this, we are going to see that crypto is much bigger than just about like, well, you know, what's the utility? I can't pay my rent in Bitcoin. So what's the use? You know, this is BS. And you go on Twitter and you see a million people, like half people are defending crypto, half the people are attacking crypto. Or I guess a third are attacking, a third are defending, a third are just posting hilarious GIFs. But the reason I think that this is really important is because when you think about, like, should you hold or should you take your profits or what should you do? Or more importantly, I should say, more importantly, when you think about, oh, when I cash out or when I retire or when I'm done with crypto, I think that it's really important to keep this in mind. Again, this is just my opinion. I could be completely wrong on this. I don't know. But what are you cashing out to? I mean, so let me put this up. If you've never read the book, The Fourth Turning, you should. I'll link to it below. I mentioned this last week. It's kind of a lot of politically charged people endorse this book. It has nothing to do with politics. It's actually just a really good history book. But what it talks about is that there's always these huge macro 20-year cycles where it kind of goes up, down, and it's just the way that the generations work. And they tend to go in 80 or 90 years based on, that's the length of a human life. So when you think about, man, what was it like in 1928, 29? At the end of the Roaring 20s, biggest bull run in the history of the United States. This one's pretty close for the equities markets, but crypto just blows everything else out of water. But nobody knows. There's a few people alive that maybe have been old. Maybe not. I mean, I don't think there's anyone alive who was old enough to really understand what was going on back then. So the only things we really have are books or stories or newspaper articles or accounts of what it was. But we don't actually have people that said, I was there when this happened. Meaning there's nobody alive that really knows what it was like. There are people that have written about it, but we don't know what it was like. And that is why every 80 or 90 years, things tend to repeat themselves. Now, I'm not trying to be I'm not saying there's going to be any sort of big war. I mean, I don't know, right? Like, I hope not. But what I do know is that people and history does repeat itself. And as this relates to you in crypto, when you look at your 1, 2, 3, 5-year plan, I know that you're probably thinking to yourself, look, I'm just here to make some money, pay off my bills or my student loans or take care of my family. And that's really all the extent of why I'm here. And that's fine. That's totally cool. But realize that if you sell all your crypto, if you get out of this and you go back to, let's say, fiat or whatever, and something does happen, as history says, something probably will go down in the next couple of years from an economic standpoint, and the fiat will take a huge hit, where would you want your money to be? Even if crypto goes into a huge down cycle, which probably will at some point. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous what's going on. But these are the questions that I think are really important to ask yourself, because it's easy to get stuck in the short term without knowing where you're going in the medium or long term. And it's uncomfortable to think about in 5 years from now, what would it be like if the U.S. economy was not doing as well as it is right now? Where would you want your money then? What's your hedge against any sort of big natural disaster or something, right? So I think that these are the kind of mental conversations I have. And the reason why I think this is important is because whenever I'm buying something, whenever I'm going on to Bittrex, whenever I'm going on to Binance or Gemini or GDAX or any of these places you can buy crypto, there's a lot that goes into the buying decision, right? Is it a short-term buy? Is it a long-term buy? How do I get in? How do I get out? What's my exit plan? Is it a short-term exit? Is it a long-term exit? What do I do after I exit? Other than, I pay my taxes, then what? And I think the more that we think about this, the more that we'll make smart decisions, the more that we will hold more stronger, and the more that we can play a game that is sustainable, that is not built on this parabolic up and down. And I think that net, more people will get the wealthy life, whatever that ends up being, in 5 years, than if we just play the short-term game of, I just want to extract value from crypto and then go back to, fiat, equities, whatever. So I think this is just the kind of stuff that I think about a lot, because I think that these stakes are getting high, and it's also, it's such a mind game to try to decide, do I hold it? Do I sell it? Do I profit? What does my portfolio look like? And you gotta put together all the different pieces. You got to make your own decisions on that. But that's the way I'm thinking about it. And for what it's worth, the more history books I read, this is one of 20 history books I've read in the last 2 months. The more I'm realizing that crypto is going to do something. I do not know if it's going to be Bitcoin, Ethereum. I don't know if it's going to be any of these coins. I think that maybe there's something else that's still got to come. But I do know that something about cryptocurrency will be the thing over the next 5 to 10 years. And that's where I want to be. So with that, as always, guys, it's a pleasure to be here. For the SF people, San Francisco people, I'll get an email today at some point with some instructions. Everyone else, stay tuned for meetups in your city 2018 and hopefully a big conference. I think that'll be a lot of fun. And with that, I will see you guys later. Peace out.